Welcome to The Graveyard. Today's guest is by far one of the most inspirational people I have ever had in my life. She is the author of the best-selling book Unemployable. She is a Silicon Valley tech genius and founder in the development of AI. She has a vast investment portfolio helping fund some of today's most successful entrepreneurs, and I couldn't be more proud to welcome her to the podcast. I'm talking about the one and only Alysia Silberg. Today's podcast will be a bit of a different style. Me and Alysia go into details about our own experience, and it's a little bit less Q&A, but we both get really, really raw and vulnerable and share a ton about ourselves that we haven't shared with anybody else. It's a big step for both of us to be able to have this conversation, and I don't think I could have done it with anybody besides her. She truly is one of the safest spaces I know, so please help me welcome the astoundingly talented and all-around beautiful Alysia Silberg. Hi, Alysia. How are you?
Hi, Courtney. Incredibly excited to be joining you today.
I'm so excited. I can't say enough about you. I could go on and on. I've told every person I know in my life about your book and how, it's my favorite book I've ever read in my life. And I don't say that lightly, but it is this perfect mix of ambition and inspiration and overcoming adversity and abuse and, neglect in a lot of forms. And this child that's just bearing this, very much like your dad said, you had such a divine sparkle that you didn't let go of. And you constantly use that as fuel. Like, this book is just, it's life changing. How has it been for you having the book now out?
Let me start by saying thank you. Thank you from the depths of my soul for what you just said, because I wrote it for someone like you, and it took a lot to be brave enough to write it. And I was very scared. If anyone listening has been through abuse or neglect or all the things you and I have discussed at length, you know what it takes to put yourself out there and say, this is my truth. You're scared of the shame, you're scared of rejection. And it took a lot. And there were times where I thought I just couldn't do it. And I wanted to do it for someone like you. I wanted to know that I'd played a small role in someone as extraordinary as you in your journey, helping you fulfill your true potential. And that meant me being as courageous as I could. And it's been scary. I'll be honest with you. There's been substantial self-doubt. I've had to keep on going. Even after the book, I've had to do substantial personal work, frequently doing meditations every day and just keeping on going, even though there's been times where I just want to hide, because there have been people who haven't responded well to the book, who don't necessarily understand me or it or our journeys. But I'm grateful, but I'm so grateful that I did it, because I'm living proof that if you do it, the world opens up for you. Look at this conversation we have. Had I not been brave, we wouldn't have found each other. Now we have this great friendship.
100%. I think reading your book and just the way it's written, it taps into such a core inner child, I think, in anybody. And you automatically are just put back into that place of feeling vulnerable when you're supposed to be protected and you're supposed to feel protected by people. And I think I'm so grateful for your relationship with your father and what he played in your journey, because had you not had one parent that, was constantly trying to achieve the right thing and give back. And you mentioned in your book, I don't want to give too much of the book away. And this is going to be my challenge, I think, on today's podcast, because I want to go into so much detail about every single thing. But when we talk about how he would give back to his community in the ways that he could, and then, the sparks of arguments that would cause between your parents, and you seeing kind of that right and wrong in life, but then also what the blowback of choosing the right thing is, which sometimes isn't financial wealth. And, it's really challenging, I think, for anybody to see like, okay, like I need money in order to survive, and that's important. But also I know what's right and wrong in the world. And I just feel like your dad had such a big part in that first piece of your life where you saw that and you were like, okay, now how do I combine these things? And that like entrepreneurship in you was just, it was such a big fire at such a young age. I remember reading about like you and your brother and what you were doing in school. And I was just mind blown. And then going to China and like having these conversations and everything at such a young age, what was that like for you to feel like you almost did have a piece of power at a young age and you were heading in a direction that was going to take you out of where you had been for the first 9, 10 years of your life?
I'm incredibly grateful to have had the father that I had. And I wish, the last decade of his life would have been different. Like he was still working in the business and that, but he experienced substantial abuse to protect me. And I never realized it till I grew up. The gift that I had in having someone so extraordinary with this vision of a bigger, more extraordinary, more exciting world where each of us has this unique gift. And he saw it in every person that walked in that shop. He just saw this light and he would light up engaging with them. And I've never seen it ever again in my lifetime. I hope I get to where someone believes in humanity and the gift of humanity and the joy of creativity to such a deep degree. And I think it was like darkness came over our lives when he died. And I tried to create that light. And you talk about these mad adventures. I think our lives became incredibly dead end when he died, in the sense that this light was taken from us. And I realized that the only way I could recreate that light was somehow tapping into something inside myself and fighting for that dream, even if he wasn't there anymore. That I knew that he described these places he'd lived, like Hollywood, and he had such clarity about it and what it was like to live in this land of, dreams and movie stars and palm trees. And that's what I had to go on. We had nothing else. We were dirt poor and we were going to lose everything. You know, we were going to be people on the streets if we never fought. And so I think it became like a race to survive in a way that I hope none of your listeners ever have to experience. If they haven't experienced it, and if they have, I hope they never have to experience it again. But I think looking back, had I not had that clarity from someone who could see a beautiful, beautiful image in their minds of what can be created, whether it's on the silver screen or with a starter, I think my life would have been much poorer for it.
I feel like the ambition that you got out of that loss is so beautiful. And the drive that you had, there's a quote that your mom, and it's used quite a bit in your book, basically about you, leading your family out of the darkness. And then you read about your constant scramble to do that at such a young age. And I feel like I relate so much to that to a degree. Both my parents, I don't speak to either of them currently. Me and my mom's relationship has been on and off my whole life, and definitely not anything to the extent that you've gone through. But part of my challenge is learning how I can tell my story. Like I was approached to do a book, like a biography style book, and I haven't been able to pull the trigger on it yet because I have such fear about what happens when I tell my side of the story. And if I tap too much into things that portray her in a negative light, and I'm not saying she was a negative person. I think there's decisions that she made that any parents make that impact their children. And sometimes they're not in the most positive way. She was a single parent. She did her best. She worked extremely hard. I moved out when I was 15 because we just had a tumultuous relationship, but we've worked hard to rebuild that throughout years. And then other things happened. We're both two very different people in the way that we view and understand the world, but she cares quite a bit about what her story is and what people think and what's told to the public, quote unquote, even just the public being her friends. And so because perception is so important to her, I think if I were to tell my story and my perception of everything that happened while I was growing up and it painted her in a negative light, it would basically end our relationship for good. And so I have fear based around that. And it's challenging to know where you're being respectful to everybody and where you're telling your story authentically and genuinely. And you've said your relationship with your mom too. She saw you in the bathroom and didn't acknowledge you. And I have a lot of fear around something like that happening in my life. Has there been resolution in any way between you and your mom's relationship?
Let me start by saying thank you for sharing what you shared, because I know how difficult that was. I couldn't have I couldn't have done that if I look back over the last few years and you having your show and discussing this stuff. I think that you you need it really. I have this affirmation I have to practice every day, and it's all part of my healing journey. And the affirmation is I give myself permission to be kinder to myself, which seems almost ridiculous for many people, but I have done so much personal work that I'm aware that I whip myself. Like my relationship with myself has been bordering on extremely abusive. And it's weird because my abuse was for like the first 20 years of my life. And now I've had a different life for the last 20 years of my life. And the irony is that I became my own abuser because I never knew any better. And I had to literally rewire both my brain and my body to come back from that, which I know you and I have discussed. But to answer your question, I think you are the perfect person to write a book for several reasons. And it starts with the fact that it's going to probably be the hardest thing you've ever done. And it's not going to be for the reasons that people usually think about writing a book. You're an incredibly intelligent person. You're extraordinarily ambitious. You've got everything. It won't be that stuff will get the better of you. It will be the stuff you just mentioned, where we have been wired a certain way to think about the world in a certain way. And we have associations towards love when it comes to our parents that are skewed based on our upbringing. I had to recently, I went to yoga and I knocked over my water bottle at yoga. To most people, it's nothing. Knock over a water bottle, you clean it up, whatever, means nothing. I never thought in my wildest dreams it would open up the floodgates to everything that happened that my brain had locked up. Literally, my brain had locked up a whole bunch of stuff in terms of trauma that I wasn't aware of. What came out of it was my brain associated seeking approval with love. That was its
Hmm.
association, and it never knew any different. So I went through my entire life because my foundational relationships, the most important relationship in my life, was founded on I will do everything humanly possible for you to love me, and I will seek it. And when you take it from me and say you don't love me, I will try even harder until I eventually kill myself trying for you to love me. And I will go throughout my entire life, and everything I do will be founded on that. And I will never understand what love actually means because it's such a foreign concept to me. What came out of the book was that I learned the love I sought from that particular individual, which is the same for you, I think. And I don't want to project on you. It's just, this is my lens
Mhm.
through which I view the world. I realized that no mother figure, no father figure, I can't replace my father. I can't replace my mother. The truest love I can give myself, which comes across as cheap and, like frivolous, but it's come from a lifetime of working at this, is the love that I can give myself. And coming from that foundation, which is incredibly hard when you've come from the background I've come from, coming from that foundation of building it brick by brick will enable me to speak my truth and stop worrying about how the other person feels about my actions. That was a huge thing for me. The idea that I was going to write about what had happened and that person was going to, inverted commas, hate me even more not want to love me even more, reject me even more, you name it. I was terrified and lived in fear of that for a very long time. And I realized it wasn't getting me anywhere because it was that cycle perpetuating itself, which is, I want this person to love me more than anything on earth, versus I love myself. The love I seek from this person, I can give myself because I am my own healer. I am my own parent. Going about it that way and saying, this is who I am, and you are a gift to the world. You, Courtney, are a gift, and you telling that story will enable you to live your truth in a way where you will be surrounded by love, which is unconditional. The relationship we have with me, the relationship you have with people like me, that is unconditional, founded on bonds that we have all been through together. And we may have traveled these separate journeys, but these are bonds that don't go away easily, that are not conditional. And I think it's incredibly hard, but I highly encourage you to do it because you'd be doing yourself and the world a disservice. And in the process, you'll realize that the relationship you have with this person is not necessarily, I can't speak for your relationship, but what I thought that relationship was and what that relationship turned out to be were two very different things. I wish I hadn't invested as much pain as I did in my relationship with that particular person because um, the world is a very beautiful place. And I was led to believe that it's a dark place. It's a scary place. People can't be trusted. You'll be hurt. You'll be taken advantage of. Um, that was what I was led to believe. And I fought it with every fiber of my being because my father led me to believe something else. And by writing the book, I proved to myself that I was surrounded by love. Like one of my founders messaged me last night, and I met him many years ago, and he's just an incredible young man who's been through very difficult circumstances from Africa to the UK, experienced racism and all kinds of stuff, but he's got this amazing spirit. And he messaged me last night, and I read this message, and I was like, I'm the luckiest person in the world because I'm surrounded by these extraordinary people who love me unconditionally. And that is what you can do for yourself. But the terrible thing to say, but that person has to get used to seeing the fullness of you in all your beauty and all your glory. And for better or worse, if they don't accept you, they're people that love you just the way you are. And those people are never going to turn their backs on you.
Wow. I'm literally I knew I was gonna cry, and it's funny because in our private conversations, I cried when talking to you, and I told you that I'm not a crier and that I'm coming into a new relationship with my emotions where I'm trying to allow myself, but even if I wanted to not cry right now, like, I don't have a choice with you. Just the way you talk, like, I don't know if it's just this immediate safety that you create when speaking to you with your vulnerability and or how you like, I it's I have no words. Like, I wish I could express what it's like to sit down and have a conversation with you because it's something I will be grateful for the rest of my life. But it's a very spiritual experience being able to sit down and talk to you. And it puts me at a loss for words because I don't think I've ever sat down and spoken to somebody and just felt so immediately loved and valid in the space that I take up and in my experience, and you do this naturally just as a person, and it's astounding. But that's, getting back to the point, that's a lot of what LGBTQ people go through when their families aren't accepting and they have to create their chosen family and surround themselves in love. And that's such an important process in a lot of people's journey. With my mom, I think it's challenging, and she'd probably fucking hate that I'm even talking about it on this podcast, but that's, neither here nor there. I think that she she's somebody that would look at like abuse in a way of like, I'm not hitting you, I'm putting food on the table. We lived in a small one-bedroom apartment pretty much all my life. And she was a single parent, so she was working 3 jobs, so I was alone a lot of the time, or I was in, a form of childcare or, and she was doing her best, but she doesn't understand that, like, the gaslighting and guilt tripping and shame and all of these things that she has fundamentally grown up with, where it wasn't conversation topics and mental health wasn't a big concern, and it wasn't something that she had to address in the way that we are right now in today's world. And so she doesn't have those tools to use in her conversation. And so a lot of the time what happens is it ends up being portrayed as shame on me. I recently went to the UK with my partner, and that was my first time going to the UK. My mom was born in the UK. Me and her had not been speaking for a little while, and I got a massive email that was just really um defeating for me. And it was just kind of like a, how could you go there and not tell me? And, if these are the last things I ever say to you, then like wipe my hands of you. And, it just, and everything was just so mean and not coming from a place of love. It was all very much this is a guilt trip for you and the person that you are. And so the way that I received it, it took me out of my trip for about a day mentally, because I was just so upset that this email was kind of, and it's funny, the day before I got the email, I was actually walking down this little road in Lake Windermere, and I said to my partner, I really wish I could FaceTime my mom right now and just show her this street because it's so beautiful. And I feel like maybe she's been here before and I miss, talking to her. It was literally, I think, the day after that I got the email, or shortly after. And for me, that was just the moment where I was like, okay, like I cannot have space in my life for this person anymore. And as a queer person, that was extra frustrating because there's so many queer individuals who parents turn their back on them because they're queer. And here's my mom who, she goes to Pride, she celebrates people, she's kind to those around her, but she can't find the same kindness from me and the same grace that she allows others. And so it was very defeating to feel like you we've gotten over so many obstacles that other people face, and we can't get through the obstacle of communication and how to talk to each other with love and empathy. And we both just become extremely reactionary because of things that have happened in the past and because of being triggered and feeling left alone. um I my capacity for those things is so much smaller because over the years, I've just gotten more and more frustrated. I think I've felt more and more jaded in our relationship and aspects, and just defeated in general of like, why am I like continuously trying to exhaust myself to have you in my life? Like, you are my mom. You you're supposed to just want to find resolution with me and want to set me up for success and see me thrive in the world. And that wasn't my story. I moved out at 15. I did everything on my own. I never really had any help. My mom was struggling. Our financials were never something that she could, help me move forward with in my life. So everything, I felt like, emotionally and spiritually, financially, I was left on my own to figure it out. But then she wanted the credit of, I was the single mom that did everything, and you owe me that respect, when I feel like there's two very different sides to our story and our journey together through life, and we can't find common ground on those.
I feel like, I've never experienced this before. Speaking meditation. I don't even know what that looks like, but I feel like we in some type of meditative discourse. And I just want to hold space for you because what you just shared, it's like I can see my history and your history. And I feel like no one's ever said to you, congratulations for being so courageous. You're extraordinarily courageous. And
You.
I, I think one of the things I've learned from spending my time around the most extraordinary people is that the expectations of everyone around them is that you've got this, you find this easy because you're you. And look what you've achieved. Like since you were 15 years old, look what you've achieved. And you make it look really easy, but it's not easy. It's it's been tough for you to do all this and keep on going and become this unbelievable person that you've become. And it's really tough because I can see you in all your glory. And then you've got this situation where I had similar situation where I've always felt very lucky because I saw several people around me have very difficult relationships with their parents. And I felt like in being thrown away, there was a gift, which was I got my freedom. And freedom is the greatest gift you can get because I had to heal. It was incredibly painful being told, well, we don't love you. We don't want you in our lives and go away. It took a lot out of me for a very long time. But in the process, I never had someone dragging me back the whole time, like messing with me. You talked about, I wanted to take lots of notes because you shared so much. The gaslighting, the guilt, the shame, the projecting, the two realities. And I experienced all that. It was awful feeling where you're like, I just don't get this. Like the world sees this person
Mhm.
and this person is so good when it comes to the rest of the world. And this is the perception everyone has. And then this person is like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde when it comes to me. And all I want is this person's love, and I'll do anything possible, like you described, to get this person's love, to be there for this person. And this person can't meet me halfway. Like, and it's like, it's very confusing because you're like, I don't get this. And you keep blaming yourself because that's part of our narratives, which is like, it must be me. It must all be on me. Can't be anyone else. And again, I think as tough as it's going to be for you to write the book, it's like sitting down and saying, if I never cared about anyone else's feelings, this is going to feel like the most selfish thing in the world to do, but it's going to be the most selfless thing you do because it's going to enable you to share your story and heal, but heal so many other people in the process. Like if I tell you a number of people that came forward to me, people that would be very, you'd be surprised by. And they just say, it wouldn't say to me, I read the book, but it wouldn't, they just say like, oh, my mother's psychotic and I've spent my entire life trying to like be this crazy super achiever working 24 hours a day. And I'm still trying to prove myself. But the fact that they say it means they're on that healing journey. But they're not saying to me, oh, wow, I read the book. But they just like subtly saying like, I know you get me. I know you get me. And we can build a relationship of safety. And there's such a freedom to that that comes from just being able to just do that. And someone as extraordinary as you with everything you've been through, like I can physically feel your pain. Like I can literally feel it inside my cells. I can feel it inside my heart is breaking open for you because I know what that feeling feels like when it's happened to me, where you're walking down the street, you're having a wonderful time and you get this like absolutely meanness coming at you. And I don't know if your mom was mean. I can't speak for your mom. In my circumstances, it was unnecessary, uncalled for. It was cold. It was selfish. It was hurtful. It was heartbreaking. I'd spiral. And so I'd go back into my childhood self, which I had to learn not to spiral. I had to learn to be in present time, which is I am Alysia. I'm a grown up, sophisticated woman who has succeeded in Silicon Valley, who's done all these things when no one was going to help me do it. I did this on my own. That is my present time narrative. But if you don't think it could trigger me to go back to being that little girl who was absolutely terrified, like I was going to get murdered, I was going to get attacked, I was going to get raped, all these things that I'm so scared of. I had to learn to not revert back to that and be like, this is my life. I'd have to go outside the house and I have to look left, right, and say, okay, no, I'm in LA. This is real. I'm not this little child who's waiting for the world to end because that's the world that I've been told exists. So I get exactly what you're saying. And I just wish you never went through that. And like, it kills me that you went through that. But at the same time, I remember once hearing the saying about we need to be like, is it 10% better than our parents? And it kept me going for like forever. And I was always like, okay, as long as I do 10% better job, that means like fundamentally things are better for the people around me. And you are that person. You are that person who's chosen a different narrative, who said, I grew up in this tiny 1 bedroom apartment with a single mom who had to work 3 jobs, who basically was doing her best and used to say these things. My mom used to say the same stuff, like, you should just be grateful. You have food on the table. What more do you want from me? But you can't spend your life in that narrative, and you've broken that cycle. You're this extraordinary, talented person doing all these incredible things. But seriously, say from here on out, this is the way it's going to be. And if you like it, you like it. If you don't like it, I am okay. And I'm going to go it alone. I wish I'd figured it out sooner. I wish when I was in Canada and I had the opportunity to live in Canada, and I said to myself, so what? I'd live at the YMCA or YWCA, fine. I'd work at McDonald's, fine. I got a scholarship at university, fine. I had people like you being friends with me, fine. And had I said at that moment in time, I'm done. I'm completely done. You know what? You don't love me? Okay, this is going to hurt like hell. You don't love me. You don't want me back. You don't want to see me again. So be it. I'm going to stand here. I'm going to fight tooth and nail, and I'm going to make my life the way it is. And if it means that you never speak to me again, you can tell me they're going to throw me out of Canada. You're going to tell me all this stuff. It's not true. But I'm staying, and I'm going to build a world around me that loves me unconditionally. I wish I hadn't wasted decades fighting for something that didn't exist. And I want the same for you. I want you to be able to just be like, you know what? I am loved unconditionally. It's the greatest gift you can give yourself.
And I couldn't agree more. And, when you said earlier you were your biggest abuser, that was something that I just realized this year was I was my biggest abuser by far. And my narrative with myself was very much based around the trauma of, if I'm not perfect and I'm not useful, I won't be loved. And so many of my relationships in my life were based around always being there, always being the one to answer the phone, always, making sure everyone was taken care of. And I would always be the person putting together dinners. And if somebody was going through a breakup or something emotionally, I was always the first phone call. I was always the first one there. And I realized, actually, after me and my closest friend had like a bit of a disagreement, where I was like, "Okay, but I'm constantly doing everything to make sure that you're okay and you're happy, but I'm telling you I'm not happy right now, and you're not giving me the same grace as I feel like I give you." And then all of a sudden, that kind of line in the sand was the first time where I was like, "Hold on, like, you know what? I'm okay if you're mad at me. I'm actually, you know what? I need you to be mad at me. You go be mad at me, and I'm gonna be over here working on myself because this is bringing up a lot of stuff." And so I went to the coast, and I think I spent 4 or 5 days there, really just like feeling everything and being like, I have put so much of my life into pleasing other people so that those people see me as valuable enough to not just throw away out of their life, because this was my chosen family and the people that were so important to me. And I had such a massive fear of rejection and their love being taken away that I was constantly people pleasing, but at a way that was such a disservice to myself. And I feel like I wish I'd learned that earlier too. But even when you talk about your story and how you wish you knew when you were in Canada, I feel like, had you not gone back in that part of your story, all of the elements that have made you to who you are today, all the elements that have had this book come out, that have led to us having a conversation, that have led to you inspiring so many beautiful young women around the world that will find inspiration from this book. And I know this book will go down in history as one of the best books ever made. But had you not gone back, maybe this wouldn't have been here. And this book is very universal healing. And this book is needed in the world. So, as angry as I was reading that chapter where you did go back at your mom, in a weird way, I'm grateful to her because I needed this story. And I feel like other people need this story and they find a piece of themselves and a piece of safety and a piece of home in that book. And it's so crucially needed right now in the world. But that was me. I was constantly people pleasing. I was I had just lost sight of how to love myself. I needed constant validation from other people to prove that I was worth anything. And this is probably the first year of my life. And this podcast was kind of the first step of that, where I was like, I can show up however I want in the world. I can be me. I can be unique. I can be weird. I can be as fucking trans and courageous and driven as I want to be. And that doesn't put into any question who I am to myself anymore, because I can't let those outside voices and that constant narrative affect me and affect my inner child who was constantly hiding, seeking safety. Because everywhere I was turning as a young child, I wasn't finding it. You know, I was heavily bullied. I had just so many things in my family. Like my dad was in and out of the picture, and he was a really, really bad um he was just a really bad person throughout my entire life. He suffered massively from addiction and was involved in drugs and gangs. And my mom was, you know, constantly working and trying her best, but I was just constantly looking for a safe place to sit down and be able to like allow myself to feel what was happening, but I couldn't. And that was part of that problem with me not being able to cry, was because I couldn't be seen as weak. I needed to keep going. I needed to continue pushing myself forward because nobody else was pushing me. And I didn't have a safe place to sit down and be able to cry when I was upset. So I think like a part of me just kind of forgot how to, in a way. And it was only really when I was like drunk that things would kind of come out in the most unhealthy way. And then I had to look at my relationship with alcohol, and you know, I had to take alcohol out of my life because I was like, this isn't serving me. This isn't going to lead me to success. This isn't going to give me um, any spiritual healing or or propel me forward. And then it was like, okay, well, I'm taking away the one thing where sometimes I allow myself to feel stuff. So it's really a constant. You're at constant battle with yourself to heal those wounds of trauma and be able to come out of it looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, no matter who else decides to love me in this world, I love myself at my core first. And then the people that are surrounding me are, you know, universally supposed to be there, and people that I love genuinely to a degree that is so extensive. It's something I didn't even know existed in the world, because we love each other authentically for each person. And there's no, you know, dangling a carrot above anyone's head. We can all just really love and respect each other for who we are and know that we're there because of that.
I feel so appreciative that you shared that. Like, I've never gotten emotional on a podcast before. And like you, I had to learn to cry. And I listened to you, and I wonder how many of us are out there going through these similar journeys, and we think we're so alone. We're like, this is all happening to me. It feels like everyone around us isn't experiencing these same things, but we're not alone. And listening to your story, and as you describe it so beautifully, like when you talked about drawing a line in the sand with your friend, like I feel like that was the first step to you saying, okay, I'm changing things. And you probably never thought it was such a big thing, but it was such a massive thing, because it was that step to say, I am starting to like love, respect myself, empower myself, but at a deeper level than I've ever done before. And watching the people around you start engaging with you differently because you were taking ownership of your life. For me, the hardest thing was moving from being a victim to being victorious. And people will be like, but you accomplished all these things. So how can you think of yourself as a victim? Because even if I was accomplishing those things, if you could have seen my thought process, like you said, the people pleasing, it was exhausting. Seeking approval from people, always
Mhm.
over engineering myself to make everybody around me happy. And always thinking subconsciously, of course, like, oh, wow, like these people are going to love me, or these people are going to love me if I do these things. When in actual fact, it was like almost like these narratives playing where I wasn't in present time. I was like so desperate to make my mother love me, to make all these things from the past play out differently in the present, that I was like literally in this loop. And listening to you describe um, your healing journey, it's very beautiful because I think you're much further than you actually think. Like you actually, like the way you described stopping to drink alcohol and to focus on like your spiritual journey and to focus on just this um, being present with yourself. I keep using the words being present, but if I tell you how much of my life, unaware to me, I spent as that child in in a grown woman's body, I wasn't aware of it. I was like, oh, I'm a grown woman. And then it triggers. So many things would trigger me. And I'd go and see a movie, or I couldn't watch movies that, represented stuff from the past because I'd come out and I'd be a wreck. And I'd have
Mm,
to keep on going, or work would be the next day. And I'd put on a brave face, like you said, about not being able to cry. And I'd pretend I'm fine, but it would manifest like in my body. Like I'd have physical pain, like in my shoulders, where I'd be triggering the fight or flight response, which I'd spent so much of my life unaware, completely unaware that I was in this fight or flight, constantly like survivalistic, like what's going to happen here? Am I in danger? Can I take care of myself? And it was so unnatural that I got to a point in my life where I started seeing the lens through which kids who are unconditionally loved grew up. And it blew my mind. It was like, it was completely mind blowing that people could grow up in a world where they were just loved for themselves and they felt
mm,
deserving of that love. And they felt as they went into the world that when they were interacting with people, they'd engage from a place of, I am deserving of the love that and healthy boundaries. I had to learn boundaries. I had to learn to use my throat. I had
mm.
huge issues, like actually asking for what I wanted. And it's been an ongoing process. People are like, but you're a successful investor. You don't see behind the scenes. You'd be surprised what happens behind the scenes where to to not feel rejected. Like I was very close to my brother. I felt like my brother rejected me. So when I'm interacting with guys in Silicon Valley and then a deal doesn't work out or something goes wrong and I care deeply about the person, if you think that didn't trigger my rejection issues, causing me to spiral, all that stuff played a role. And coming back from it where I could wake up and be like, oh, wow, I could actually live a healthy life where I don't have to spend like 3 hours a day meditating. Like it sounds crazy and people think meditation is this amazing thing. It is. It saved my life. I wish I'd found it much sooner. Probably my childhood wouldn't have been a tenth as traumatic as it was because I could have just opted out and being in a meditative state while I was being beaten and screamed at and all these horrible things.
I don't know if being
But
in meditation helps when you get shot, but
I don't know. But I think this is maybe if I found it sooner, life would have been easier. But you're doing an incredible job of like finding your inner power. And I know it's going to get tough. And I know there are going to be days where you just want to throw in the towel. You're like, I don't want to keep going because this just feels so yucky. And there have been times where you and I discussed this, where to release myself from my trauma, I had to learn to separate the mind, the body, and the emotions. And from all the years of meditating, the ironic part was the mind was the easiest part to actually rewire, even though it took a very long time. Um, Learning that my body was the one that was almost like giving into it. You talked about addiction. I was like an addict where it was like it fed on abuse. And as we've discussed, like I went from abuse to becoming my own abuser. And then it's sorted out. So when things would go really well, I couldn't cope. I literally couldn't cope. If it was like a period where it was like something would go well, my brain would go, oh, everything's going to fall apart. I don't
just
feel
wait.
safe.
Oh my
I
God,
don't
yes.
trust this. Everything is literally going to just crumble in my hands. And so the only way my body could cope was to go into this fight or flight state. I don't trust. So learning to bring the mind first back from that, okay, the mind is sitting there and saying, I'll be okay, I'm watching. Then the body, and basically addicted to trauma, say, stop, I'm not going to surrender to this. And you just watch it flowing over me. And it is absolutely, I can't even describe how painful it is because it's been a lifetime of just wanting more, which is like so unhealthy. And learning to say,
Mm.
you're safe, body. You are safe. And we don't need anybody else to look after us right now. You and me, we've got this. And we know that what awaits us on the other side is so much better than us, that we're going to go through this horrible feeling so that we can become the healthy version of ourselves we want to be, and not letting the emotions get the better of me. That was some of the hardest stuff I had to do, but it's worth it because then I get to see the world in all its glory and all its beauty. And I get to see that there are individuals in a lot of pain. We both grew up in those environments, but we don't have to own that pain. And I think that was, as you said, the lesson that I had to go back and see. It's like, if a person chooses to suffer, we can't take them on those journeys.
Mhm.
Like if their choice is to suffer and be persecuted or persecute themselves, then that is their choice. And no matter how much you and I choose to say, we want to take you, we want to save you, we want to love you, we want to protect you, we want to change your life. We don't want you to suffer anymore because we're successful. We can provide for you. We can make your life wonderful. But
Mhm.
our choices are not their choices. And that was what I had to learn, which was like, Courtney and me, we're the same. We're aligned. We want the same stuff. That doesn't mean the people that gave birth to us want those same things. And as I say, I can't speak for your circumstances, but what was clear was I don't want to be a victim. But there are people in my life who fundamentally believe being a victim is the only way to view the world. And
Mhm.
I had to learn to be like, I wish you love. I wish you all the love in the world. I just don't want to participate in this.
Mhm. And it's so important to know that you can love and take space at the same time. It doesn't mean you don't love them. It doesn't mean you have to be angry. It doesn't mean you have to wish them ill will. It just is, I love you, but this is no longer healthy for either of us. And if you can't see how unhealthy it is for both of us, then I can express how unhealthy it is for me and remove myself because you do like I looked for love in all the wrong places. You know, my partner that I'm with now, I never would have been able to be in this love story had I not started to go through this self-work because you search for love and you start seeking out victimhood of I want to save you. And then I had all these I want to save you boyfriends and it was oh my god, fucking exhausting. If I could have saved myself the I want to save you boyfriends of my 20s, you know, it would have my life would have been um probably a lot more forward than I is right now. I'd be farther down my journey than I am. But, when you talk about finding success and everything falling apart, when I went to move into this home that I live in now, I had a very traumatic experience right before, because I couldn't see myself living in this home. I couldn't envision it. Like, I've always been like a visionary person and like I believe in manifestation. And so like I would picture myself somewhere like giving a speech or being able to donate to a cause or something. I would always just like imagine what it would feel like to be there and be doing those things that I wanted. And then for some reason, when it came to moving into this house, it was blank. My imagination it couldn't get there. And I'd been inside the house. I knew what it looked like. I would try, and then it scared me because my friend that had passed away in 2020 had mentioned to one of us in our friend group, that she never saw herself living past 30, and I was like, "Oh my god, maybe this is where I'm gonna die because I can't see myself living in this house, like, maybe something bad's gonna happen to me soon." And so I really started having this, um fear-based reaction of trauma because I couldn't envision living in a beautiful, big 5-bedroom home. I'd only lived in these small places, and for me, it was gonna get ripped away. Something was gonna happen, and even to the extent of my brain telling me, "Well, you must die because 'cause you're never gonna be able to live in this home. You're not worthy. This isn't your story. This doesn't make sense." Imposter syndrome, all those things. And so the day that I moved in, and now having lived here for how long have I been here? I think a year and a half, 2 years-ish. Um, and it's the safest place I've ever been, but I think back to how I couldn't imagine being here because my trauma was so blocked in my head to the point that it was telling me, "Well, maybe you're just gonna die because you can't see yourself living in here. You don't deserve this. You don't deserve to be here." And that was such a massive learning curve for me to be like, "Okay, when I can't see something, it's not telling me that it's not gonna happen. It could be trauma blocking me from seeing that because I'm not telling myself I'm deserving of doing it." And then that unlocked a whole other side of my imagination and the possibilities that I saw myself being able to achieve. And now it's very different because of the self-work that me and you talk about doing. And like your book, I can't say enough about this book. Like, please, if you're listening to this, go read this book because it's life-changing. But reading even just the first couple chapters of your book and then being able to sit down and have a conversation with you, preemptively to this podcast, it sparked a whole other side of my healing journey where I've gone back and listened to those conversations and understood more about myself. And I said to my partner the day after we got off the call, because I was crying, and I said, it was magical. I think that there was my inner child that found a friend in somebody else. And it was the first time that I felt like that scared little girl had somebody reach out their hand. I'm always going to get emotional with you. But it was finding that friend that I had been looking for throughout my childhood. And it felt like that hand out of darkness where there was like just a piece of me that felt, um, you know, still scared or unrecognized, or like nobody else was out there that understood me the way that, for my experiences, the way that you did when we talked. And it was that hand and that friendship and like this beautiful piece of my inner child that felt seen, and like I could finally have like a friend who understood me and to play with. And I felt like I found a place where I belong.
I feel like the luckiest person in the world that I get to have this podcast with you because it's like my inner child gets to hang out with your inner child. And it's like they're at the kindergarten and they're holding
Totally.
hands and skipping around and like dancing around, having the time of their lives, which is very healing for me. I have to tell you, because I had a terrible time in kindergarten. Like you talk about bullying and these things, and I was seen as so weird. So I just, when you told the story of your home, like congratulations for starters. I know what a big deal that is. And it's like,
Thanks.
again, I don't know if anyone's congratulated you, but going from what you went from to a beautiful home, I hope you feel incredibly proud of yourself and deeply like honor yourself for that. But I know what that feels like. For me, it was around the bed. I know we briefly mentioned this to each other, and
Mm.
I I never got to sleep in a bed. It's a big step saying this, but it's a bit in the book. But I had huge issues learning to sleep in a bed because that was not something that I was allowed to do. And I live in LA. I live in, this beautiful place, there's ducks outside. It's like a movie set and it's water and it's exquisite. And the idea that I had to learn to be okay with my success, beautiful place. I was the same as you. When you talked about that you were going to die, that happened to me several times. And I had to learn, okay, just like you said, this is my mind's way of like coping, coping because the the things that are happening are so positive and feel so good that it can't actually cope. So it's just saying, okay, you're gonna die. Because like
Yes.
then you can cope. It's like, okay, you're
Like,
gonna die. And it's like the baseline. So we're going from there. And I know what that feels like and know how traumatic it is. Um, when your brain starts going there and it like shuts down and then you have to work your way back from it. And you try and explain to other people who haven't experienced this level of trauma. Um, my brain says I'm going to die. And the people around you are like, what is like, we're trying to be supportive. We're trying to be understanding, but we don't have a clue what's actually going on. You've got
Mhm.
the house you wanted. You live in the place you want. You're surrounded by cool people who think you're awesome, who want to hang out with you as you are. Like everything you wanted has come true. We don't understand where there's stuff about I'm dying, I can't, like I'm dying, and then the brain going with all these versions of dying. Where's this actually coming from? And to unravel that and the way you described how you did it, again, and I don't say this lightly, but I think you should give yourself so much more. Like credit's too weak a word, but more love because you are so far into your healing journey. If I think about when I went through that stuff and um, the way you talk about it, the way you've dealt with it, the way you're like, are now living your life, you're incredibly far along this journey. And I think the overachievers in us, the, as you said, the imposter syndrome, the we're never enough, like the idea that we have to fill every minute of every day because we feel unworthy, like that's how we were wired. But at the same time, I can see like little seeds growing from the ground and spring. And I can see your spring and your garden is really beautiful, really, really beautiful. And it's
Thank
just gonna
you.
keep blossoming around you. And I can picture it feels like I don't know, like a Christian Dior advert or something, you know, when they're like dancing in the flowers and in sunshine. And I can't think of another brand when I'm like, that's you. We're dancing in the flowers. It's like, that is just and it's that's your reality. And I think you embracing your reality and owning it and being like, I may not see it right now, but somebody who's been on this journey too can see it. And this person saying like, Courtney, you've done it. You have done it. Like as I say, as someone who's lived and breathed this stuff, um, you have done a sensational job of healing yourself and writing the book. I think is just the next natural step on that journey where you just you allow it to flow through you and out into the world. And the joy and love and community you're creating with the podcast is only going to compound with the book because more people will come forward and more people will be so grateful that you went through these extremely difficult things and you're having to willing to have these very tough conversations, but you created like a vessel of safety. You created a vessel of safety for me. I've never had this conversation with anyone in a podcast before, and I don't think I would have. Had it not been someone like you who was so brave and so open and so vulnerable. Um, I think I would have kept the stuff to myself. Like there's a lot of shame around a lot of this stuff and being able to say, I don't care either. I don't care if people judge me. I don't care if people think I'm weird. So what? I don't care if they think I have these issues. So be it. Courtney loves me. I love Courtney. What do
Yeah.
we care anymore? No.
No. Oh, and I thank you for everything that you say. Um, there's so much empowerment in finding somebody that understands. And I think that that's something that I have searched for my entire life. I've had people love me. I have incredible people show up for me in my life, and I am grateful for. But I think for the first time, I feel like I'm talking to somebody that really says, like, I understand and I get it. And that was, that was reading the book for me, was being like, wow. Like, I thought that victimhood comes in sometimes and you kind of get caught in a woe is me almost from moment to moment. And then your book really put into perspective for me, no matter what anyone's journey is, when you're going through situations that we've gone through in our life and that a lot of other kids are going through right now, you look at what's happening in the world. There's kids being pulled out of rubble that are going to be telling their stories in 15 or 20 years that will be a completely different experience. But when you find somebody, no matter what your story is, no matter who that person is, that says, I understand you and I get it. And I've been there, and also allows you your feeling and to take up that space. It's just the most rewarding feeling I've ever had in my life. And reading about you, and maybe this is a segue into this next little chapter here, because I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I do want to talk about this because it's important. But how you talk about kind of seeing the world in mathematics and how that evolution has led you to your relationship with AI and where that's taking the world now, and integrating that and being able to move forward with the times. And so many people do feel overwhelmed and scared of AI technology, of technology in general. And sometimes it's, you look at the world and you're like, being born in the 90s, oh my God, it's so, everything's so different than how we were raised. Everything's so instantaneous. Everything's so, you think about like doing a photo shoot for products. This is something for my makeup company that I just blew my mind. I would sit there for probably about 2 days doing a makeup photo shoot, getting the products ready, having a nice backdrop, taking the photos, going into a editing software, editing the photos, clipping them, making them all look nice. And then there's my business partner that takes a picture on his iPhone of a product sitting on our coffee table and goes, Court, this is important to do, but also just like take a look at what you can integrate while doing those things. And the picture on the phone looked better than the one that I just spent 2 days staging and taking, because it was AI generated and put it on a beautiful backdrop and lit it perfectly and cleaned up all the edges. And a part of me was like, fuck, like I'm mad at how good that is, because I'm frustrated that it's better than mine. But being able to utilize that would free up so much of my time that I could then go and contribute to somewhere else. And it would allow me to go and speak in a place that I wanted to be able to speak at, that I wouldn't have had the time before, because I would have been in a photo shoot or I would have been doing this. And um, helping and utilizing AI as a tool through your day to day is something that I think is unavoidable at this point in time. And I think that the more pushback people are giving, the more you're actually creating obstacles in front of yourself. And you need to be open to what this experience is in the world now, and utilizing technology that in a way that is going to help us, and especially entrepreneurs. This is speaking directly to the entrepreneurs, but if you're not utilizing technology in your business, and if you're in startup phases of that business, AI technology is your biggest friend in the entire world. If you don't have expensive cameras and lighting equipment and staging, and you're getting started with a few small products or something like that, AI software can get you to a place where you're competing visually with all of the big hitters in whatever your industry is. And it's the biggest resource that you have as a young new entrepreneur, is to utilize technology and AI software right now. But you talk about seeing the world and how it evolved to that for you. Do you mind? I know AI is such a massive part of your life, and I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I do want to highlight this because it's so important.
Said it so exquisitely. You'd think you'd been in AI your entire life. For me, I was incredibly passionate about math, and I had to learn 3,000 formula off by heart for some exams I had to take in 2003. And I was like, this is sitting in this room and 40 people, top top math kids in South Africa, and I'm like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Like, you talk about creativity, and to me, math and numbers are always very beautiful. And I was like, by the time I leave this room, I'll never remember one of these numbers in my life again. Why am I pretending to be a machine when I'm not a machine? Like, I need to build a machine, and the machine can do the manual stuff, and I'll do the creative stuff. And that was my vision for AI. And it took 20 years to prove it out. Everyone thought I was crazy. So I was involved in AI that brought me to the US, built one of the first AI voice analytics companies before anyone even knew how to do this, because I was passionate about it. And when everyone thought this stuff was just done, several people, when I helped my portfolio companies, were like, why are you doing this? They'll never work. They'll fail. I could see a future where the perfect example you just gave it, where you have someone who's exceptionally talented, and then you have AI, which can help that talented person be so creative and a visionary. You're a visionary. And the things you have to do in your day-to-day life, that the world is not better served, nor is your company, nor your customers, nor your team, when you were doing those things, when the AI could be doing those things, and even though you're exceptionally good at it, as you proved with the example you gave, the AI can do it, which gives you the ability to go and talk and give a speech, which is very important, which enables you to build your brand, build your business, and just keep expanding your company, which is more important for the world than you doing every single part of it. And that is the power of AI. That was why I wanted to build this new company that I'm building. It's for that exact reason, where an extraordinary individual would come to me and say, I have this problem. I want to scale my business. I don't have the time. Where do I begin? And it's so inspiring seeing people take their time back and seeing the results of, wow, my business is doing better. I'm making more money. I'm all these goals that you had that you were kind of like, not you, but a person was stuck before. And they're like, I don't understand. I'm working so hard. I've never worked hard in my life. Why do I have no time? And the AI, which does such a great job at so many things, is there and it's there to support you, to help you achieve your goals. And that's how it was for me throughout my journey, where I was like, I have these big grand goals, but I don't have enough time in a day. How do I do all these things I want to do? And we have in this conversation, I can spend an extended amount of time with you because I have the AI doing all the work. And so that gives me the ability to hang out with cool people where yours go and be like spinning and scrambling. Oh, Courtney, I'm so stressed out. I don't have
Mhm.
any time. But
Yeah.
now I have time. And I don't know, my entire lens through which I view the world has changed because I just encourage everyone to start like the way you started, where it was such a simple use case, but it was such a powerful ability for you to say, okay, I'm thinking about this. It feels uncomfortable, but I don't want to be left behind because you're so courageous. You're so curious. You're so passionate. You're so open minded. I'm seeing the world stratify and it scares me between people who are like curious and saying, I'm going for this, I'm trying this. And then there are people who are like, I'm really scared and I don't want any part of this. And I'm just going to put my head in the sand and pretend it doesn't exist. It does exist and it's worth embracing. Even if it's in a small way, you don't want to be left behind. You don't want to be in a position where in 5 years' time, you're like, I ignored it. And now I'm just like stuck while everyone around me has progressed. So if people want to reach out to me, like as I say, like the way you just gave that example, that's my sweet spot. I love it. Entrepreneurs thinking about how they can use AI to like, but make their businesses go at hyperspeed. I love it. I'm so proud of you, Courtney.
Thank you. Honestly, I learned, and I'm not gonna lie, I was pushback AI. Like I wasn't ready to integrate it into my life. And my business partner is very much the opposite. He understands AI and the use of technology and integration and organization and using it properly and putting in all of these steps. He's technical. I'm so excited one day. I've got to get you two on a call together because I think that would just be an immaculate conversation. He's very analytical and data based, and fundamentally everything lines up and makes sense. And 1+1 is 2 um, type brain as well. And I think for him, like he introduced me to Chat GBT when I was in content creation last year and I was scrambling. I think I was doing 15 or 16-hour days every single day, no days off. We were traveling for work. We are going around to all these different cities. I had 2 assistants working for me that were with me full time in my house. And between managing them and then all of the businesses, we acquired another business. I was just like, I'm I don't understand how anyone else does this. Like I don't get it. Unless you have like teams of 50 people working for you on every single individual thing that's going on. Like I don't this doesn't make sense. And one of the big things was content creation and inspiration to make content, and Cass showed me Chat GBT for the first time, was like, look, like just type in what you're thinking about making. This will spit out a bunch of ideas at you. And then you take your ideas and like that first step of fundamental creativity is sparked because now you have all these things that are going to spark other ideas. And then you can go into detail about what you want to do and pick and choose and yada, yada, yada. And it was the most simple thing, but I would spend hours trying to think of content and what content to make and how to approach it and the conversation and all of this stuff. And here was this tool the whole time that would have saved me 5 or 6 hours at least in a week. 5 or 6 hours a week. And when you're an entrepreneur, if you just freed up 5 or 6 hours in a week, that's a massive win. And all of a sudden, there I was free. And then there were so many other things that could be integrated that could expedite what I was doing on my day to day. And I realized that my resistance was my biggest downfall in business so far. And it was that resisting was actually something that quite possibly, had I not realized it at the time, could have led to a lot of further struggles for myself and my companies had I not been able to. And part of it's relinquishing control. I can say that honestly. I think I'm a little bit of a control freak, and that's trauma based because you have that fear of everything kapoof, it's gone. And so you grip it for dear life and you hold on to it as hard as you can. You work as hard as you can to make sure that it doesn't, dissolve in front of you, like you talked about. And I think letting something else take control, whether that's a person that you have coming in to help you, whether that's AI software, whether that's handing over the ropes to somebody else to take over, it's based around fear of letting go of control. And I think that I had to let go of control and allow things that are there to help me and utilize them so that I could be a better person, not just my business doing better, but I could be a better person. I had more free time. I was more mentally healthy. I could show up better. I could be a better boss. I could be a better friend. I could be a better partner in my life because I had 5 or 6 hours now in the evening to spend in quality time. Like there's entrepreneurs, and we often forget that the most valuable thing in life is time and quality time. And as an entrepreneur, you forget how valuable your time is sometimes. And it all becomes your business or making money or this or the next opportunity. And if we sit down and we realize how valuable our time is, especially to spend with those that we want to, and having genuine connection and human connection in our life, how valuable that is, you realize where AI software can really come in and be the greatest gift to all of us.
I feel like I'm your self-appointed mentor. I've just decided that's my role in your life because I feel like you are just, I don't know what else to call myself outside of your friend. I am so in awe of you. The way, like I use the word ego, you use the word resistance. And like the way you have surrendered to your relationship with the AI in such a positive, healthy way where you see the value it's created for you and it's enabled you to just even grow and become more expansive as a human being. And you can see the benefits in your life versus, we both come from that background of the sex fear of losing control. That's what I've said to people where it's like I had the same struggles as you, like with control and letting go and letting people in and fear of losing the business or whatever the case may be. And again, like you're dealing with it is so exceptional. Um, and I've encouraged so many people. I said a large part of my healing journey came from working with the AI. We are learned to enable it to help me help myself and give me that room to be a better, more creative human, which enabled the business to thrive more, be a better boss in that. And I think you need to give yourself a lot more credit. Like you really do. Because I've listened throughout our conversation, all these aspects that you've just gone about and just incorporated, whether it's into the business, whether it's into your life, whether it's your friendships, with interaction with your mom. And it's like, you're this incredible human being who's built this incredible business. And I can see why people follow you. I can see why people are like, hey, that's someone that's a role model to me. I want that person to mentor me. I want to be on that journey with that person. I could see why people want to be customers. Um, it's, I know it's been really tough, but I think that's what makes visionaries. Like one of the things that I recently figured out was that it's actually really learning to be a visionary. And I invested in this one extraordinary founder. And I had a call with him. He worked so hard. He's built this huge business. And I just took it for granted that, he's exceptional and he's like us, being through difficulties. And I always just took it for granted. I'm like, oh, he's got it all covered. And I said to him, like, I'm really proud of you. Like, I know it can be lonely being like, all these responsibilities, all this capital you have to look after, all these employees, everything. And he said to me the words, I miss you. And it, my heart wants to burst because I realized that our journeys, again, we all think that we're all doing such a great job, and we don't need to just like say to each other, like you're doing a phenomenal job, Courtney. Like you really are doing a job. Like the way you described how you were initially resistant and your business partner, which again, exceptional. The way you chose the business partner you chose, so your skills complement each other. These are not things that are taken for granted. Like founders often choose people that are just like them versus people that are different to them. And then you look at how do very successful companies get built? It's because someone like you says, I need someone who has different skills, who can complement me, and we can be the best team we can be. And that person can challenge the way I view the world and challenge the way I think about things. And I just am doing a phenomenal job. And
Thank you.
you just got to keep on going. I'm excited to see where you go in the next like 5 years, 10 years. Like I'm excited to be on a journey with you. And I think you're going to build a magnificent business. You rightfully deserve to. And I think we each are going to be the beneficiaries of your hard work.
Thank you so much. It's really funny that you just called yourself my self-appointed mentor, because I literally have in my conversation after we end this podcast, before we wrap up and I say goodbye, I literally have a little thing that I'd written out to be like, if you have any interest in being a mentor, I would absolutely be completely honored, even if it's, once every 3 months, whenever you can find a minute to just, oh my God, it's beyond an honor to hear you say that. And I'm so, so grateful. What do you have going on now to wrap this up? Because I know that this is um, taking a bit of your time, but what do you have now in the AI world going on that you can speak about? Where can people find you? Where can people get Unemployable, the best book in the entire world? Go buy it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So what have I got going on? So I'm building unemployable AI. I'm very passionate about it. So if you have a problem in your business and you are kind of stuck and you're like, how do I go forward? I want to use AI, but I don't know where to begin. Reach out to me. Like I have access to the best founders in the world when it comes to AI, including people like Sam Altman. And I have access to the best experts, tools, all those things. And I spend probably 18 hours a day studying this stuff. So the idea that I can focus on problem solving and connecting you with the very best people on my little platform. It's going to be a big platform. Now it's a growing
Massive
platform.
platform.
Sure, you go massive. So reach out to me at unemployable.ai, and it's just started. If you want to get the book, it's on Amazon. You can find it, and you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I love hearing from you on LinkedIn. So just send me a message. So I know that you wanted Courtney's tribe, and I'll do my best to respond. I have a weekly AI newsletter, Alicia's AI Insider, which is on the website. My team and I spend extreme amounts of time getting this newsletter right, because I know not everyone's doing AI 18 hours a day. So the idea that it's like meets you where you're at and doesn't freak you out, doesn't scare you, more takes you on the journey and makes you feel empowered is extremely important to me. I take the feedback very seriously. My goal is for you to learn and be on that journey where you can be delighted by what AI can do for you. To sign up to the newsletter, and I think those you can find the link on the website for the book. And I think those are the most important things. And yeah, I'm just excited. I'm excited and grateful to be living in such an exciting time in history where technology made this possible. We would
Yeah,
have both been in Canada, not even known each other existed.
100%. And I couldn't be more grateful to you for coming on here. I think to anyone that has gone through struggles in their life, but specifically speaking to youth that are feeling defeated right now, or to young entrepreneurs that don't know where to start, I hope you found so much value in this conversation. Please feel free to reach out, to either one of us at any point in time. But I'm so grateful for you coming on and being a resource and now being my mentor.
I'm giving you a massive hug. Eventually, we will get to a point where we can both feel, I think it's already there. We can feel us, each other, giving each other a hug.
Yes,
I'm giving you a hug.
100%. Oh, you're absolutely, absolutely incredible. And it was an honor and a privilege to have you on here. And yeah, if please please come back on anytime. There's always time for us to be able to sit down and have a conversation like this.
Let's keep, as you grow on your journey and as you discover more about yourself, like I want to do check-ins with you because I think that's so important where people can see your journey being honored as you just become bigger and bigger in your own journey. Just being able to take a step back and honor that because both in your business life and your personal, it's like these journeys, these stories need to be told. People need to see that someone like you did go from where you went, where you came from, to the huge person you've become, and it needs to be honored.
Thank you. It, just, I have no words for every time we have conversations and I take away so much, but we're going to have a wonderful, long-lasting relationship and be able to watch each other succeed to completely new heights. And to anyone listening, this is just a reminder of like, take the first steps forward. You can do anything you put your mind to, even in the most like absolute determining circumstances where you can't see any way out. Um, every wall is a door. When you look through and craft it, and every closed door is an open window. It's really about pivoting and finding inspiration and not ever giving up on what you want to do. And your story is such a testament to that. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
And that wraps up today's episode of The Braveyard. I want to give an all around massive thank you to Alysia. I don't think I could have had this conversation with anybody else. I normally like to keep the endings of these podcasts short and sweet and segue into who's coming on next week. But this was a massive step for me in my own healing process. I think one, even allowing myself to have this conversation with her, and B, being able to put this out for everybody to listen to. I have focused so much of my career on business and looking professional. And this is the first time I think I've really shared a very vulnerable piece of myself. Me and Alysia were able to sit down before this podcast, and I think part of that is maybe why we were able to just dive so deep right away with each other on the podcast. But if you know anyone that is struggling, especially anybody that's struggling with family, whether they're queer or not, there are specific times that can be really challenging for people that struggle with their family, especially holidays. So if you have a friend that's in that position, invite them to yours, lend out the hand. It can make all the difference. I really hope that you were able to take something away from this. I hope that anybody that's feeling something similar feels validated. And if there's anything that we can do, please feel free to reach out to both of us. We're here to help support in any way we can. Next week, we have yet another absolutely fantastic guest, Max Talisman, who you may know from writing, directing, acting, had roles in things like Orange is the New Black. He's coming on to talk all about his new film that's going to be coming out quite soon. And if you want to know more about it, make sure you tune into the next episode. But for now, I'm Courtnei Lee, and we'll see you next time at The Braveyard.